Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing today? So it's draft day. It's finally here. Year worth of work finally coming together. Before I really get this started, man, there's something I wanted to say, man. I watched Daniel Jeremiah's mock yesterday. It's a very humbling thing sometimes when and I felt like I needed to say this that DJ gave us Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson is a player that I've talked a ton about on here, man, and I think sometimes you got to re-clarify what it is that we do when you're scouting a player, man. A lot of the things that you're scouting are on the field, man. You're not really necessarily speaking about a lot of the things off the field. So one thing I will say about Jordan Tyson, man, there is no. This dude's a great human being, man. Very, very bubbly personality, man. You listen to his interviews, man. He's got charisma. He seems like a very, very good kid. A lot of coaches, Hines Ward, um, Kenny Dillingham, all the coaches from Arizona State University, man. Everybody preaches very, very high character for this kid. We talk about what we see on tape. We talk about a lot of things, man, and a lot of times it's so much based off of what is on the field that, man, we kind of forget that there is a human aspect to it, man. And that's why I try to say, man, there's no bad picks. There really are. They can only go. It's only going to go right or wrong based on what happens in their career, man. You can only hope that they stay healthy when you pick them. You hope really wherever they go, they maximize their skill set, man. The only reason they're here is because they put in a fuck ton of work. And it's just something I felt like I needed to say before I get this kicked off on this mock. This is going to be my last mock for the year. It's draft day mock. No, it will not look exactly like Daniel Jeremiah's. Yesterday, man, I watched it and I was like, man, he's going to put Jordan Tyson to us. I know he's going to put Jordan Tyson to us, man. And I was just like, you watch, two of your favorite players, in Jeremiah Love and Carnell Tate go to the New York Giants, and you watch somebody that you're like, man, I wouldn't draft him personally. And I mean, but if we're talking about it being your job, there's a lot that goes into it, man. So again, there's something that you always got to disassociate with, man. There's a human element to all this, and Jordan Tyson is a great kid, man. I've said it 1,000 times, man. The skill set is there. I understand why anybody would pick him in the top 10. I understand why somebody would pick him in the top 5. There's a lot of people that think he's the number one wide receiver in the draft, and there's a certain skill set element to him where he's 6'2", 210 pounds. The way that he moves in and out of his breaks, the cuts, the things like that, man. There's a reason that he's getting mocked in this area, man. It's because he's a great football player, man, on the field. And for me, I'm a little bit more conservative in injuries matter when I set aside a Saturday for your matchup, particularly. You're not available, and it happens multiple times over the years. It's just something that it's really, really hard for me to kind of get behind, because realistically availability is a trait, and it doesn't get any easier in the NFL, outside of maybe you learn how to take care of your body a little bit more, be a pure professional, because you're in the building with professionals that have learned how to take care of their body. That's why when you see teams come in, new coaches, coaching staffs, they always bring in veterans that can, one, help players get into the playbook, two, teach the young guys that they're trying to, build their culture around, to, take care of their bodies and things like that. So again, the Commanders need a home run pick, man. They need a home run player, man. They need a top tier player at whatever position that they go. That player should be available to him. So again, man, it's I respect everything that Daniel Jeremiah does, man. I just knew that pick was coming, man, and it's just something I felt like I needed to comment on, because I feel like when I'm explaining everything that I see on tape with this dude, man, it completely disassociates the human element outside of it. It has nothing to do with the kid as a person, man. He's a great person on and off the field. It's just everybody has a preference. Everybody has a skill set that they're looking for. Usually Jordan Tyson would be the exact type of player that I like. That's why I've set aside so many Saturdays, live to watch him in game flow and things like that. And then just the fact that he wasn't available, it actually kind of sucks. It sucks when you get excited. You're like, okay, man, Jordan Tyson. He's going to go up against Tre'Davion Stukes for Arizona. Maybe the next week, he's going to go up against, a smaller school. Maybe the next week, he's going to go up against Kelly Jones. I'm going to set aside that Kelly Jones. I'm going to set aside that Tre'Davion Stukes. I want to see those matchups and things like that. I saw certain wins and certain losses in certain situations for both of those things that ultimately are the reason why I've locked him in and graded him where I was. And that's for every prospect, man. That's, everybody has a preference. Everybody has a thing that they're looking for. Just because what I think this team needs, that doesn't mean that Adam Peters views it that way. It doesn't mean that any two people look at it the same way. Ultimately, man, there's a reason these guys are going up front. No matter who your team takes, just find a reason to be appreciative. I'm going to do my best to, give you what I think is going to happen on, in a couple hours. And we'll go from there. So with no further ado, we already know the number one pick. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders, man. So the Las Vegas Raiders have picked Fernando Mendoza. I think that's pretty easy and self-explanatory. I think he's that dude on and off the field. Again, we talk about everything on the field. There's a reason off the field, man. He seems to be a really, really good, kid of faith and things like that. And just, everything that you want from the quarterback position emulates, very, very much idolizes Tom Brady. I think this kid is going to be a hard worker, man. I love the way that he plays in big critical moment downs. Later in the game, he really, really, blew up his stock, from transferring to Cal to Indiana getting their first national title in the football, world. It was pretty damn cool watching them, man, and just seeing my team be in the national championship, man, seeing that game. It was a really, really good game from snap one to the last snap of the game, man. So it was really, really cool seeing that, man. Fernando Mendoza really sold me for being worthy of the top pick this year, man. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. I think he's got a bright future, man. I think Las Vegas has already started with some key players around him. Can they stay healthy? Like Brock Bowers, a guy that I loved coming out of school. Again, man, I think it's going to be a really, really good year. For Fernando Mendoza, just in the elements that he's going to learn. Does he start right away with Kirk Cousins there? I don't know. But, when he's ready, he's ready. And I believe he's going to see some meaningful snaps this year. To the Jets. A lot of people on the Jets, they talk about David Bailey not showing up for the meeting. Ultimately, Daniel Jeremiah went David Bailey for the New York Jets, kind of going that safer route. I actually agree with that. I think David Bailey is, he is a first step get off, edge rusher, man. And right now, they're not going to pick the quarterback. There's no offensive tackle here. They have addressed, the trenches in the past. So what is your most important position? It's kill the quarterback. So, David Bailey would be a hell of a pick for the New York Jets. I actually tend to agree with that pick. Daniel Jeremiah had the New Orleans Saints trading up to the Cardinals for this pick. I think there's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things that go into this pick. He did it because he had them moving back up into the first round later on to take Ty Simpson. There's been a lot of Jeremiah Love reports here that would be the player that they're kind of leaning at. Realistically, for me, the Arizona Cardinals, they pretty much did the same thing, and I don't really necessarily see this as a bad thing. I'm giving them a different name. I'm going with my top offensive tackle in this draft. I'm going with Francis Mauigoa. I think the price to be paid for the Saints is too much. I don't necessarily see a trade in the early section of it. If I do have a trade, I'll do it. So the Tennessee Titans are on the board. Arvell Reese is there. I actually agree 100% on what Daniel Jeremiah said to the Tennessee Titans, and they went Sonny Styles. I actually agree with that pick. Sonny Styles is the prototype at linebacker. I think he's a really, 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 really good player. He fits everything that the Robert Saleh wants. Robert Saleh had prioritized, linebacker in free agency when he was with the Jets. He's brought in a lot of players that he had drafted with the Jets. Clearly, he has a lot of say in that room. I think Sonny Styles is going to be the pick for the Tennessee Titans. The New York Giants. With Sonny Styles gone. Let's see. The New York Giants. Don't think they're going to Arvell Reese. I think that would be a really, 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 really dynamic piece to pair with all the edge rushers that they already have, and he can be another edge rusher. I think that would be a really, really, really special dynamic. I think a lot of people have kind of shunned away from that being an option. But Arvell Reese is a hell of a player. He's a hell of a linebacker, and I think if he's there, I think I think the value is just too high. I think you can play him at off-ball linebacker and still rush him and use him in those packages and things like that. We don't know how much longer Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to be there. Brian Burns is a veteran. He's a little bit older. Abdul Carter still has a lot to show for being, the number 2 pick last year. I have no problem with them going Arvell Reese because I know he can play off-ball linebacker and he can still take his time in kind of developing that. I know this is something that hasn't been spoken, but I think you're just looking at a point where Harbaugh's staring down one of the best players in this draft, one of the most, high upside ceiling players in this draft. And I think, you already know, we know what Arvell Reese is as an off-ball linebacker. I've said it a lot. I think Arvell Reese is an absolute stud at the off-ball linebacker position. I know, everybody's projecting him to be an edge. I think there's there's a lot of work that goes into that. And if you're picking a player and moving at a position, doing it in the top 4, top 2, top 3, it's a huge risk. I think the Giants have the type of infrastructure that would allow them the freedom of putting Arvell Reese in a spot that he can come in day one. I've talked about this a lot with us, with Arvell Reese being available to us, which I don't think is going to happen. It's clearly not happening in this mock. But the biggest thing for Arvell Reese is I think putting him in a position where he is familiar and then allowing him to sit in the other room to be a pass rusher, using him in situational pass rushing situations, maybe at edge or something like that, and then having him play off-ball linebacker, which is a position he's comfortable with. Now, to maximize what you're getting out of him immediately while he transitions to another spot. We all know about the trade rumors for Kayvon Thibodeaux and things like that already. There's been reports that they probably aren't going to move off of him, but either way, that's probably still the last year of him going to be with the New York Giants. It gives you an immediate impact for Arvell Reese, like I said, at the most comfortable position for him this year while he can sit in on those defensive end meetings and things like that, and allow him to get a little bit more familiar with that and maybe transition him to start being more acclimated to that year 2, year 3. I think having a plan for Arvell Reese is the most important step to having him panning out and being the best version of himself. And that's very much why I did this. So to the Browns, I think it's been very, very obvious that they were going to go offensive line. I do very much agree with Daniel Jeremiah. It would be Spencer Fanu right here, who was his first offensive lineman taken. He had Francis Mauigoa going to the Cardinals. He had him going at pick 8 because of the trade that he made. This pick, I've talked enough about it. I don't even need to really talk about it for the Commanders. I'm going Jeremiah Love. I think he's the best player. I think if we are really on the clock, I don't think Jeremiah Love is going to be there, but he is for this mock. You can say, oh, you took Arvell Reese to keep. No, I mean, I took Arvell Reese because nobody's actually talked about that to the New York Giants. I actually think that would be a hell of a pick for the New York Giants, and I think it would be a hell of a pick for the player to give him, like I said, the comfort to be able to play the position he's already been playing in college football as he transitions to the position that everybody's projecting him forward at. And that is similar to how Dan Quinn did the Micah Parsons thing. Everybody's talking about, everybody's comping Arvell Reese to Micah Parsons. Well, that's the way that Dan Quinn did it. He put him at off-ball linebacker and then very, very, over time transitioned him to edge. And that's what I think the Giants would do if they took, an Arvell Reese, and they have the type of, makeup along their roster and things like that that would allow them to do that. It also allows Arvell Reese to come in like Micah Parsons did, get that confidence playing the position that you've been playing in college football as you transition over. I think that's the plan. I think there's an archetype. They've seen it done. They've seen it happen with Micah Parsons. If you want to do it the same way that Dan Quinn and them guys did it with Micah Parsons over there in Dallas. Okay, so to the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints traded up for Arvell Reese and Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, so I think it makes it very easy for me, and I think this has always kind of been the direction that they would go. Ruben Bain Jr. for me, I think he's a stud, man. I would love Ruben Bain Jr. to be here. I think every mock that I've done for Ruben Bain Jr. for my last couple of weeks, I've kind of put him at the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going to say I'm not doing trades in this mock. I'm just I'm not doing them where I don't feel like they're going to happen in this early in the draft. I don't really feel like anybody's going to pay that price. As we get down this board a little bit, I think that's going to come more into it. Let's see, the Chiefs. I very much actually agree with Daniel Jeremiah here. Mansour Delane would be the pick for me. I think that's a home run pick. And then, I've seen this two ways, man, and it's been a lot of talk. I mean, realistically, I've seen the Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs additions to the New York Giants. I've seen, yesterday in the mock, it was Jeremiah Love, and then they picked Cornell Tate. I very much do agree that if the New York Giants were on the clock, it's been a lot of the doubling up. I think they do actually love this player, and I'm going Jordan Tyson with them to give them basically the same pick that I think they thought that they were going to get there at 10. Two of these players I really, really love, and that's why this player is about to go as quick as it could humanly possibly go. Cornell Tate to the Miami Dolphins. If he is sitting there at 11, I think he's too good. I really think he's going by pick number 7. Pick number 8 would, I think, be the absolute floor for him. The way that this mock is kind of going, though, with Arvell Reese going to the New York Giants, 2 offensive linemen going in the top 5, top 6 picks. I think that is very possible, and I think these offensive linemen are actually genuinely worth the pick. Get your trenches figured out, man. I think that would be the most important building block for the Arizona Cardinals. They're paying a quarterback that's not even on the roster. Next year, they're clearly going to want to pick a quarterback. Having Paris Johnson there and having, Monroe Freeling there, having your right and left tackle already solidified on the board, neither of them are switching positions. That just allows your quarterback to come in and get running. That also allows you to pick your quarterback next year, pick some weapons around him, and start developing your team around him, man. Having the trenches up front solidified for your quarterback before he comes in there, man, that's a hell of a luxury. I'm very much going to agree with Daniel Jeremiah here because if Caleb Downs is on the board, Dallas Cowboys are running that pick in, so we ain't even got to discuss that. He's just too good. The fact that he's falling to 12, he is one of the best players in this draft overall. I think he's an absolute stud. Let's see. So he had Lemon going here. Daniel Jeremiah did, man. The reason I keep quoting him, man, is I have a ton of respect for this guy. He's absolutely amazing human being, man of faith, and just honestly, I very, very much enjoy everything that I always hear from Daniel Jeremiah. I love listening to his pod. I'm going a different direction, man. I'm going a little bit more need. I'm going a little bit more consensus to what the Rams have always kind of done. Monroe Freeling is a really, really trait up tackle, man, and I think that there's going to be a really, really big run on offensive linemen in the first round. I think protecting Matt Stafford, who is only getting older, I think, I know Sean McVay can find home run hitters, at the skill positions later in the draft, man. He knows, he has an eye for it, whether it be Eli Stowers later in the draft, whether it be, one of the wide receivers that he takes later in the draft, man. He does a very, very good idea. He has a very, very good eye for identifying a certain skill set that he wants and how to use it, and he knows how to use it. To me, getting a top tier, offensive tackle that can develop long term and be, a really, really bright player, they don't pick very, very highly. I do remember Sean McVay with, Trent Williams here in Washington, and he made the trade a couple years, and had the veteran offensive tackle on that line who was a cornerstone player for them when they were winning the Super Bowl. I think getting an offensive tackle, I think Freeland can play the left. I think he can play left. I think he can play right. Whichever they needed to do for him earlier, I think he would come right and step in right away and play right tackle. If you wanted to switch him over to left later on down the road when that player retires, again, you can do that. I think that's the best thing for the Los Angeles Rams. I think that's very much how they would do it, and they would try to get the premier player, wide receiver, later in the draft because they know that they can develop that player at that position. I actually very much agree with where he had the Ravens going. Kenyon Sadiq, that is just a Baltimore Ravens pick. I'm very much higher on Kenyon Sadiq, than most, as far as where I graded him personally. I think he's an absolute stud. That's just a Ravens pick. For every reason Daniel Jeremiah said it was the reason that I've said it. That's just what they do. They pick the best player on their board. He is a Big Ten player. He's a SEC. It would either be Big Ten or SEC, and that's very much where I went, was Big Ten. I think Kenyon Sadiq is just a Ravens type player. Andrews, they did re-sign him, but he's getting older. Having Kenyon Sadiq in the pipeline developing gives you another weapon for Lamar. Gives you a guy that can block and then come out late and really give you almost like. He's not Travis Kelce in those terms, but he can do all the things in line and the hesitations and things like that, and the late stage routes and things like that, where he comes in, looks like he's blocking in line, and then he goes out later. Lamar kind of uses that on the check down. You have that type of athlete running after the catch when the defenses are drawing up to Lamar, running out of the backfield later. That's a really, really good piece to have in that locker room. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Where do I go for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Let's see. I've gone a lot of different directions for the Buccaneers, man. I really have. They're a team. I mean, I've given them Kenyon Sadiq a lot. I could really see them going. Yeah, I could really see them going Awane. Yeah, I can just see that. You pair this guy up with Tristan Wirfs, man, and you are talking about an absolute unit in that run game, man. Now you're opening up lanes for Bucky Irvings, man. Like, that run game would be elite pairing Awane with Tristan Wirfs, man. That guard position, that's just too good of a player for me. I mean, I'm so much higher on Awane than I think a lot of the consensus grades have him, man. I mean, he's a top 10, top 12 player for me. And honestly, he was one of my favorite players going into this season. I mean, the only reason I graded him right there was because he's at the guard position. Let's get through here. Let's keep going on this. The New York Jets, I had taking David Bailey. There is not a cornerback right here. Let's see. He had him taking Omar Cooper Jr. I think Omar Cooper Jr. is very, very similar to what they already have. I actually, when I talk about Omar Cooper Jr., man, it's between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson, man. Like, he's like a hybrid version of them. They already have Garrett Wilson. I'm going to give them Mekhi Lemon. I actually think that fits, man. That's a dynamic slot guy that can pair with Garrett Wilson outside. That's a nasty 1-2 combination right there, because you have the outside presence at wide receiver already. Man, you have Mekhi Lemon working the slot with Garrett Wilson working outside and kind of playing, a hybrid slot role depending on certain things. That's a pairing that you can do some really, really good damage with, man. I like that for them. Detroit Lions. I think everybody knows they want offensive line. And I'm going to give them the most consistent offensive line, man. When I think about the offensive linemen that I've seen the Detroit Lions take over the years, man, they're steady Eddie, and I'm going Blake Miller right here. These offensive lines these offensive linemen are coming up much earlier than my last mock that I did on my football forum that I talk on constantly for us, man. Like I picked up a mock draft that I was like, I could very much see these players all going in this position, whether it's that team that's picking in that position. This one's coming out a little bit different, but every mock changes, man. Every pick that changes, every one pick changes every variation for how the mock draft can be going. So to the Minnesota Vikings, man, I've done everything not to put Daniel Thiemann on this team, for the I just think I think it's almost so cheap. You going from that safety to another. I actually put Emmanuel McNeil-Warren there last time. Let's just go Daniel Thiemann, man. He's too good. He's too good to be here at 18. So we're very much going Daniel Thiemann. Carolina Panthers. I'm going Omar Cooper Jr. Parallel with Tetero McMillan. I think that would be a legit combination, man. Inside out. Omar Cooper can play inside and out. I think that would just be a really, really dynamic weapon to give the quarterback there. I think that would go a long way towards topping off that offense, man. You added Tet. I think that really, really allowed, that team to really take a step forward. I think the coaching staff is getting the most out of the quarterback. I loved him coming out of, Alabama back in the day. So again, I like it. I very much like it. I like the pick right there for Omar Cooper Jr., man. He's best available player. I think I've done this multiple times right here. Gave you Caleb Downs already. I'm going to go with Akeem Masdor. Akeem Masdor's a stud, absolute stud football player, man. I'd hate to see him go to Dallas, but I mean, just Dallas picks good players in the first round. That's what they do. This one's pretty, actually. This one actually is really, really easy for me. Caden Proctor to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Los Angeles Chargers. I have pretty much mocked Ioane here as like his floor. This is very much Ioane's floor. I tell you what, man, I'm looking at this name right here, and one plays the free and one plays the strong. Man, this right here would be a pairing that I don't know if anybody likes it. I don't really care personally. I just think that's a pairing that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Derwin James, that would be the most athletic, biggest freaking safety tandem, probably since Sean Taylor and LaRon Landry. And, for many reasons, we never got to see that pan out, and take off. We never got to see either player be maximized, but for 1 year in that, and it kind of sucks, but the way Derwin James flies around that field and the matchups that you have, and if you have Emmanuel McNeil-Warren trolling the back end of that defense, and he can hit and he can get turnovers in his own prowess, man, like, that's a tandem. I mean, that's like almost like a no-fly back end. I mean, dangerous, and you really, really get to really, really get to key on how you want to focus Derwin James. Based on your matchups, the Travis Kelce. You see how he plays against the Chiefs and Travis Kelce, man. You got Patrick Mahomes having to think about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Derwin James on the back end of that defense. That's going to be very, very hard. That's going to be very, very hard for these teams. You want to counteract, Sean Payton in that offense with Bo Nix, and you want to, and guys that can close some ground if these quarterbacks are scrambling. That's a unit right there as far as the safety tandem right there. I have not put that on a mock because I've really, really much gone Ioane, and now that I've done it, I've really liked that combination right there. I mean, that is an athletic, very, very athletic, very, very rangy safety tandem right there, man. Like, you can do value safety all you want, but I'm telling you, there's some really good safeties in this draft, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is one of them. And if you were able to pair him with Derwin James, I mean, that's really, really special. I like it. So he had the Eagles trading up for Caden Proctor, the long-term replacement for Lane Johnson, which I did like that. Um, let's see. I could actually see them going this direction, man. I've gone leaned more towards the edge position with them losing Jalen Phillips, man. I think you just solidify everything that you want with youth, and you're about to you've paid Jordan Davis, you're about to pay Jalen Carter. You're going to want to get cheaper and younger on the edge positions because you're not going to be able to continue to throw financial implications into those positions. You're going to have to be young somewhere on that defensive front and turn it over for it. So I think I think that I think. Sorry, I'm sorry. Keldrick Falk. I think Keldrick Falk would make a lot of sense. Again, another SEC edge, another big edge. You put him next to Jalen Phillips Jalen Carter and Jordan Phillips. That's another huge defensive lineman to have on that front, man. I think that speaks to what Philly does. I think that would be a consensus pick, the way that I think Howie Roseman likes to, do his drafts. That's Keldrick Falk is that guy that I think is very much grading in that range. This one's pretty easy for me. This is definitely going to be best wide receiver available. For me at that point, and by far at this point, I got one other receiver that I really, really love in this range, but it's Denzel Boston for me. And Hold up. Yeah, the Browns. I was like, hold on, man. I was like, hold on. Didn't I give them Cooper? No, that was the Jets. I was like, hold on. Sorry, man. Sometimes you get caught up in these mocks, man. You're doing them live, and you just, it is what it is. Actually, man, I did this pick yesterday in my mock, man, and it made so much sense to me that that's exactly where I'm going because I actually value this player higher than I think. Katie McDonald to the Chicago Bears, I think would really, really, really go a long way towards stopping the run, helping that team clean up some of the things that they're already deficient in. It's already something that's a skill set for him. I think he has traits to develop as a pass rusher long term, and that allows him to accentuate those with some of the pass rushers that they have on that team. I like Katie McDonald in that spot. I think that was a really, really good value player. Let's see. See, this is where the draft gets crazy, guys. This is where the draft gets crazy. So he had them trading up to the Bills for Ty Simpson. I'm not gonna do trades. Yeah, I'm not going to do trades. I just don't. I never really find the spot for me where it really, really kind of makes sense. Let's see. I'd really, really put Caleb Banks here if there wasn't the foot. But I'm going TJ Parker. I think TJ Parker is just, what you're getting from this player. He has the length, he is tough, and he can actually play the goddamn run. And that is something that when I watch the Bills, man, it's so frustrating watching the Bills. That defense they've picked good players on that defense, man, and they just, for some reason, there's always one-dimensional. They can either rush the passer or they can play the run, but they can't do both. And TJ Parker is the one that can do both. So that's a player that I really, really like for them. This is pretty friggin' easy for me. It's the feet. It's the schematical fit. Maxi Iheanacho to the 49ers, man. Zone blocking scheme. It all just fits. Houston Texans, I'm going Caleb Lamu. It's got to be that way. They are offensive line until further notice. And the player's worthy of it. The player is very, very, very much worthy of it. And then I am giving Kansas City one of my favorite players in this draft overall. They already picked the cornerback in Mansour Delane, the local product from us. Casey Concepcion to the Kansas City Chiefs is a player that I really, really like. And you put him with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's a guy that can create after the catch. I think that would very, very much give you that element that you're kind of missing with Travis Kelce as he slows down. That Travis Kelce was always that space eater, that guy that just wins underneath and, wins after the catch. That's what Casey Concepcion does, and I mean he would fit perfect in that offense, man. I already know Andy Reid has like 76 plays on that board. He's like, oh well, just Casey Concepcion here. Oh, Casey Concepcion. You're just gonna start hearing him like he's Travis Kelce in the next 3 years. That's just how that would go. So the Miami Dolphins back on the clock for the second time for the Jalen Waddle trade. Let's go up a little bit and just double check that, because dude, I'm forgetful, man. Sometimes, some of us are burnt out. Doing all these mocks, talking football all the time, watching football. I'm already scouting next year's class. Like that's what I do while the draft is, the draft process is going on, while all the mock drafts and everything are being made. I'm actually scouting next year's class, so I'm ahead on it because it really gives me a little bit more time in the off season to just focus on spring games and things like that. So again, I'm burnt out by this time of the year, man. When the draft is here, man, it's so much mental stimulation that it's just like, you're glad that it all comes together. It's a ton of work coming together, but at the same time, you're like, shit. It's really hard to keep focus, man. And now that I say that, I didn't even, I know I went, yeah, I do. I went Cardinal Tate, that's right. Well, that was a grand slam. Yeah, talk about it. Let's give him a, no. Nope. I know exactly where I'm going with this. I had actually put Zion Young in my last one. There's a player that I'm looking for right here specifically because I really do think he is going to be a first rounder. And it could be Traydon Stukes. Let's see. These grades sometimes. And don't get me wrong, I love. Oh, there he is. I was about to say, I was like, there's no way Chris Johnson is that far down. Chris Johnson is a cornerback that I do believe slips into the back end of this first round, and that's why I picked him there. I think Miami would be a really good place for him. I think he's going to be a really, really good corner. The fact that I don't have Colton Hood in my first round right now is kind of telling me that I'm wrong, though. So just, take this for all, man. Like when you have grades on certain players and you're just looking around the board and you're like, oh my God, I don't even have Colton Hood in here. And I'm scrolling down to a player from San Diego State. Hey, I like Chris Johnson. I think he's a stud. He's a really, really good corner, man. Great feet, great, just everything that you want. And then honestly, they don't have a running back. Like, let's be real. And I do like Jadarian Price. I'm going Jadarian Price to close it out for the Seattle Seahawks, man. So this is my first round. Y'all work with me for the picks. I know I ramble. I know I mumble and, kind of going on. I'm actually thinking, and I'm trying to, do this for the best way that I actually think the draft is going to happen. I'm doing this without trades. So some of the players that I'm putting in these positions are just where they might not actually go to this team. I'm putting him in this spot because that is as far low as they're going to go. Certain guys, like I said, like Carnell Tate, like if Carnell Tate's at 11, dude, like if he's at 11, it's because somebody else went higher. And honestly, whoever traded down to 11 probably, or traded, because if somebody went higher to make Carnell Tate fall to 11, I think somebody traded down from ahead of us, and that's how you got there. Again, I don't know how this is going to go. A lot of these places are the floors. I think for some of these guys, like Jeremiah Love, I think this is the floor. Carnell Tate, this is the floor. Caleb Downs, this is the floor. I think Kenyon Sadiq is pretty much penciled in right here. These are the names for the first round that I really, really like. I think Colton Hood gets in there. I did a mock, like I said, I did a mock on my forum the other day, and I was just like, when I was going pick for pick, it just felt so right. This draft looks a little bit different than that, but it's because I put Arvell Reese at pick number 5, and that just changed this. Like I said, when you put one name ahead of one other name, it really does fluctuate how a lot of things go, especially once one name changes behind it. Everything just gets crazy. It just goes rogue. So again, man, this is Cody from the Blue Chip Podcast, man. This is my last draft. It is draft day. It's finally here. If you think this draft sucks, it probably does. If you don't think it sucks, it probably doesn't. That's just that simple. Realistically, we're going to find out at 8 o'clock tonight what these teams are going to do. Thankfully, it's here. I can stop projecting. Maybe I do a 2-round, projection tomorrow or something like that. But after that, I think we can stop projecting and things like that, because I never did get to give my second, third round, and I did give you my top 150 big board. That's kind of more easy consensus as far as what I think about these players. My team boards look they look a lot differently than my big board. So again, certain players on my team board, especially for the Commanders, aren't necessarily in those spots. But again, thank you guys. It's draft day. I'm not going to keep you any longer, man. I hope you guys have a blessed day, have a blessed week. If your team is not in the NFC East, I hope you guys get everybody you want. I hope they're superstars. If they are in the NFC East, whatever, we got to beat you. I hope they pan out, and I hope they're great too, because I want to kick all y'all's asses at full strength. That's how it is. So again, man, from the Blue Chip Podcast, have a blessed week. Peace.